And we're back once again with Stacey Raven and Bob Dennis to talk about micropulse. And today, Stacey's going to lead the discussion.
Good morning, everyone. This is Dr. Stacey Raven, and today we're going to be talking about the C5 micropulse. And this is what it looks like. And there's 4 sets of coils. So I have questions from people for Bob regarding the C5, so we'll get straight to it. And the first question is placement of coils. Since there are 4 sets of coils, how to properly place them. For example, if you're using them, say for knee pain, that's one example. And then the other question I had was for back pain. How do you place them since there's 4 sets, and how do you adhere them to the skin?
So that's generally the most frequent question I get about the C5. And the first thing to keep in mind is the C5 circuit-wise is the exact equivalent of 4 M1s, but they're synchronized. So each time one puts out a pulse, one channel, the next channel puts out a pulse. So keep that in mind. You can add the coils up then. You can distribute them and you're getting simultaneous pulsing. With that in mind, it tells you a lot about the placement of the coils. And generally, the best thing to do, actually, I think, is to go on our forum and ask your specific case of how to place the coils. Because we make these deep field coil sets that are the coils already added up magnetically and then taped together so you can get deeper penetration. But it takes 2 coil ports on the C5. The C5 has 4 ports. It takes 2 of them to make a set of those coils because we're adding them up. And every time you double the number of coils, it increases the intensity depth by about 60%. So if you stack up all the coils you can make from the, you can use from the C5, you'll get about 120% the penetration effect that you would get with a single pair of coils. But how you place them really depends on your specific needs. And some people use them on their heads, some people use them on their feet, some people use them on the insides of their mouth. So I think the best thing to do is to get on the forum and ask a specific question. And lots of people will give you their opinions, and I will too, because I check the forum several times a day. They'll say, oh, for that specific application, consider this and this. And I'll add the link to the forum right in the top comments for this. I'm not trying to evade the answer, but we could talk for hours about coil placement if we tried to cover everything.
Okay, so just real quick, for example, for knees, would they just tape the coils there in talking about adherence of the coils, no matter where it is on the body?
Well, actually, what I do is I get these compression sleeves. The sleeves sometimes you see waiters and waitresses use, and they're trying to get them their skin color because they got a lot of tattoos and they're not allowed to serve food in their restaurant if they got tattoos. So that, you can get these compression sleeves. I just bought a pair yesterday. It was $3.94 and they're excellent. It's a Japanese brand. It's on Amazon, and you can get them for knees and ankles and wrists. And it's called a compression sleeve. And it looks like a thin, really thin, almost like a nylon stocking, but it's like thicker than that. And then I just slip the coils in there. I'll slip like the M1 in the other side or C5 in your pocket, if you power it separately. And that tends to hold the coils in place. You can hold the coils on opposite sides on your knee, or both over your patella, or both on one side stacked, bumpy side to bumpy side. But my preference is to use the compression sleeve. But you can also, I'm trying to experiment actually with this, because this is an ongoing issue. There are these electrode adhesive, like silicone gel. You can act like you can glue your cell phone to your skin and then peel these things off without leaving anything. You can find these on Amazon. They're very inexpensive. And it's usually a little gel pad, and they'll say, oh yeah, hold your cell phone or hold something else to your skin. And it's, they come in like packs of 20, and they're clear silicone. You just peel off the coating and then you can slap something there. So you can put the coils there. It depends on if you want to use something that's consumable like that. The other option that I have used many times is that I will sew a pocket into a piece of clothing.
Oh.
And I do this, like I'll take an old t-shirt that I use for painting or something. I have plenty of those kinds of things. And I'll just sew a pocket in where I want them over my lower back or over my shoulder or whatever. And I sew a pocket in there for holding the device. And then many people ask me, well, why don't you make these and sell them?
Mm-hmm.
And my answer is that making garments and selling them is a very rough business. And there are tens of millions of people trying to do that business. And a lot of people in Pakistan and China who do it a lot better than me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
What I do is I provide the core technology that you can't just make in your kitchen or your garage. And then each person needs to have stuff placed in a different location. So I think the answer is you want to be kind of creative. This is another thing we can talk about on the forum, by the way, because a lot of people have solved this problem differently. And I'm constantly hearing new good ideas about it, like the silicone pad idea. That was somebody who suggested it, I think, on the forum. It was like a year ago.
That is a good idea.
Yeah, I would literally go to the forum and then ask that question, and then people will give you feedback, and then try it and then put feedback back on the forum. And because it's kind of a collective thing. Some people who make these PEMF devices have tried to make, knee braces and shoulder braces and elbow braces, and then they'll place the coils in there permanently. But what happens if you need them to move them? So it's actually the best way to do this is just inexpensive compression garments and old t-shirts.
Okay, great idea. Thank you. If somebody wants to use the C5 in their car while driving long distances, for example, a truck driver, how can they use it in the car?
Okay, so this is a good question. This is an important one. Okay, so everybody, this will be on the test. This is an important piece of information.
I'm not taking any tests.
Yeah, I know. Here's another who suffered through a PhD. And the very first thought that flitted across my mind when I got my PhD was no more tests. Yeah,
I know. I thought the same thing.
I'm done being examined. But for all the rest of you who don't have a terminal degree, unlike Dr. Ravid and myself, who we do, we have the right to just not be examined anymore. That's your number one advantage. Right? So this will be on the test. Don't just plug it into an adapter in your car because the plug looks like it fits. Mm-hmm. You have to use 5 volts. So what you need is a USB charger that takes the 12 volts of your car and turns it into a USB standard 5 volts. Then you just plug that into those old things they still have called cigarette lighters. They don't put an actual cigarette lighter in them anymore, I guess. They have different outlets in your car. And as long as you turn it into a USB charging port, you can use it right off a USB charging port. You can do that, but it's got to be a charging port. Don't put it in the data port of your car or your laptop or your computer. It needs more power than that. Plug it into a charging port that charges USB, and that will work perfectly.
Okay, great.
We have had two C5s have been returned when people try plugging it into the 12 volts of the car and destroys the unit. There's no way for us to fix it. We end up having to replace it. So don't do that, please.
Okay. So with the C5, there are pads that you can use with it. This is one of the questions. Where are the pads? Where did they get them? When this individual went on the website for the C5, they didn't see the pads showing within the C5 section. So how do they use the pads with the C5?
Well, we do have a pad. It's not very big. It's about this size. Mm-hmm. It's 4 of the 2x2 arrays. Those should be right on our website, and you should be able to find the pads on the website. This is extemporaneous, but do you want me to have a search and see if I can find it, or do you want me to?
Well, they were just looking under the C5 section and
should be there. They should be there.
Okay.
You can always contact us and we can tell you about it. So the one we make certain combinations because you've got to get the magnets, the coils are instantaneous magnets. So you got to line those up properly. And it's a little bit of an art. So we do that here, and we make deep field coils, which is like a pair of coils stacked on top of another pair of coils to really get good depth of magnetic field penetration into tissues. Works really well for like hips and stuff. Or we can have it more distributed. Like some people have injuries to their ribs or like a larger area, something more superficial. Or they're really good for use with pets because they fit under pet bedding really well. So yeah, we make those. It's on the website. You should be able to just go on the micro-pulse.com website, click on the C5, and that stuff should be, I'm almost 100% certain it's there.
Okay, great. So one of the questions was, is the C5 the best micropulse to use for animals, dogs, horses in particular?
It depends. It depends on what you're trying to do. So C5 is really good if you need a larger area on an animal. Like sometimes animals have a larger area. I know of a case, for example, where a horse was thrown out of its horse carrier on a freeway off ramp, and it had all kinds of abrasions and stuff that were not healing well. So needed a larger area. Some things need to be focal. And so, really on a point, almost like acupuncture. And sometimes the animal needs to be able to walk around without being tethered to anything. Other times the animal's kind of restricted in its motion. So once again, I hate to keep saying this, but I know this doesn't sell products, but life is complicated and you got to take into account all the circumstances, large animal, small animal, moving or stationary, like what's the duration of the treatment? What's the depth or, dispersion of the injury? With that being said, one of the most popular ones to use with horses is an A9 because it's least expensive and it's the simplest. And what people do is they just have some sort of drape over the horse or something, or somebody puts a dressing on. You got to know what you're doing with a horse because you'll really hurt them if you put the wrong kind of dressing on them. Like you can really make a tendon injury a lot worse if you don't know how to dress it. So you really have to be good at this, but they can wrap that right into the dressing and really help the horse. Or, sometimes the animal needs more than that and they can kind of tether them to something and use a C5. And it's hard to say. Now, one of the reasons that you don't necessarily want to use a model A9 is because the intensity is a little too high for a horse. You'd think big animal needs more intensity, but actually horses are extremely sensitive. So one of the reasons the model M1 has much lower range of intensities that you could select is so that they're more useful with horses. Right? Because horses are more sensitive. I asked an equine acupuncturist one time, why are horses so sensitive to this? Because they're such large animals. And she said, yeah, well, what's a cat, a dog, and a human? Well, we're all predators. And a horse is a prey animal, and prey animals have to be more sensitive to things in their environment. That was her explanation. So, yeah. Okay. So depends, like a M1, C5, A9, it really depends.
Okay. Are there more protocols with the C5 than other micropulse models?
No, they're about the same as the protocols on the M1, except the M1 has also the 5-minute delay protocol. So the C5 actually has a little bit fewer than the M1 because it's actually, it's a technical reason, right? There's more computational demand on the C5 for the microcontroller because it's got 4 outputs. So there's not quite as much left over in the memory and the processing ability of the C5. There is that amount left over in the M1. So I was able to cram in a few more. I was able to stuff in a little bit more code. And so it can do the protocols that we talked about last time with the Omni 8 and the A9 and the B5, C5. They can do that with a little rest delay at the end too, but not the C5. So the C5's got, I think, 27 protocols. The M1's got, I think, 30. The B5 is the programmable one. Maybe we'll talk about that sometime. That's much harder to use, but you can do tens of thousands of different combinations of things.
Okay. The hexagonal coil tester.
That would be
explain how to use it, and
that
for the C5, do they need to try it? Yes, on each coil. So will you just briefly go over the hexagonal coil tester?
You just literally put the hexagonal coil tester. You just literally put it over a coil. Here's a coil. Here's a tester. You just put it over, or you put it right behind. And this one's not plugged into anything, but if it were, you'd see green flashes of both of the LEDs. That means the pulse is going both directions. So I recommend that if you are testing out your equipment to make sure it's working, you use the hex tester. It's virtually indestructible. As you notice, I just dropped it. There's no batteries. It's not really any maintenance, but I would regularly check each one of your coils to make sure that each one of the coils is working. Sometimes, like if I put it on a knee or a foot or something, got everything working and I think it's going fine, then outside the bandages, you can put the coil tester and you'll see the green flashing outside the bandages to show you that, yeah, everything that you've wrapped up and is working, it's working fine, right? So I think the coil tester is really important. And also what you can do with it that's kind of cool is it helps you a lot in aligning the coils. So if you were to go bumpy side to bumpy side and put the coil tester between them, bumpy side to bumpy, so you have two pairs of coils, 1, 2, and you put the coil tester between them, or you stack them and you put them on one side. So stack the coils together. There's two of them stacked, bumpy to bumpy, put the coil tester on one side. It'll be a brighter green flash because there's more magnetism every pulse. If on the other hand, you stack them the wrong way, and then you put the coil tester over them, it'll get dimmer because you're canceling out a lot of the pulse. So the coil tester can be used a lot of ways. And once again, that's something that I would, it's very inexpensive. You can use it with other PEMF systems. Like if somebody's making claims about some other cheapo PEMF system, try our coil tester on it. It can tell you whether or not their system's generating biologically active PEMF pulses because it's calibrated for that. And Bill Pollock and I and others have tested some other PEMF systems and they don't register anything on our coil tester because their pulse is not in the biologically active range. They're just selling you a pulse generator, but it's not real biologically active PEMF.
So it goes green, bright green to dim green. It does not go red, correct?
No. The coil tester only has two green LEDs. And the more of a magnetic flash that it sees, the more of a green flash it will give you.
Okay.
So if you stack the coils together properly, the flash will get brighter. If you stack them together wrong, it will get dimmer. If your coils are broken or not functioning, it won't flash at all.
Okay, great. What inspired you to create the C5?
So that's a interesting story. Let me think about it briefly here before I go on for an hour and a half. That would have been around 2016, 2017. I had a need for it myself because I was starting to get bad hip pain and other things, and other people that I know had a need for it. And mostly people were requesting something that could do more, that was bigger, that could do more. So I went ahead and designed it. And the first one I designed was the B5, which is exactly the same. It's just different software. And the B5 is just way too complicated for most people. Even I don't like using it because you could keep messing with the program to get something just right. And the C5 is actually a vastly simplified version of the B5, just in its software, which it allows me to pick out the protocols that I know are going to work. Because people have used them for brain entrainment, for pain, for all kinds of other things. And these are protocols I know are likely to work. And so I put that, instead of being able to monkey around 17,000 different ones, it boils it down to 27 that cover the whole spectrum of usability. And most people, even our PEMF super user, Aaron Coffey, who's done many interviews, he only uses one protocol, the original one, Omni 8. He just told me this yesterday. So people don't really necessarily benefit from having hundreds or thousands of protocols. It's like the weird calculator effect, right? Everybody wants to buy the calculator with the most buttons, but then they only use add, subtract, multiply, and divide. You don't need that level of complexity. So the C5 was meant to have more complexity, but only a little bit that's useful. That's what it's for.
Okay. Last question is, can you really build and test the C5 in 1 week? They are made to order.
I pre-assemble most of them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't start with a bag of parts. So
Okay.
I pre-assemble most of them. And I'll start with most of a circuit board that has to have 2 or 3 things soldered on, but not 50 things soldered on. I don't have an example right here, but I do in the other room.
Mm-hmm.
And I pre-machine the cases for them, and I get the parts all together, and I pre-test the individual parts.
Mm-hmm.
And then when somebody wants one, I usually build a few that we keep in stock, which is why when you order a C5, very often we can send it out in less than a week. But sometimes I need time to finish putting it together.
Mm-hmm.
So we tell people allow 1 week because they're actually put together by me. If you were to come and visit my laboratory, which people have done, you will see C5s in various states of assembly because that's what I do there.
Okay. And is there anything else you would like to add or any tangents you would like to take us on?
No, these are that's right. Now I'm permitted to go on a tangent because Dr. Ravid said, Bob, give him the straight answer. So I tried to, right? Yeah, the thing is that yeah, those are good questions. And I don't mean to be evasive talking about the forum because I really like the forum. I actually go on the forum 4 or 5 times a day. And I give people an answer. I usually try to get an answer to people the same day if possible. And sometimes I can answer them within minutes if they just happen to be on at the right time. So, because I get a notification, oh, boom, somebody just posted something on the forum. So you can ask all these kinds of questions. And there's many people on the forum now who can give you their opinions on it too. And I will always chime in with what I know if that adds anything to the conversation. So that's a really good place to get like detailed information. And I tend to write really long posts just so I can give people all the details they need.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the best place to get, I think, the most detailed information. And I'll put a link to the forum down here.
Great. That's a great asset. And thank you for your time and your energy and expertise. And on the next video, we will display another micropulse and have people ask questions about it, which I will relay to Dr. Dennis. And happy holidays to everyone.
All right. Well, have a nice, safe, long weekend because Labor Day, and we'll talk to you later.
Okay.